This morning we're going to paint this, and the colours that we shall be using, if you can see them here, I'll just take that around there. All right, so the usual colours. So we've got titanium white, cadmium yellow, permanent rose, cobalt blue, burnt umber, and ivory black. Okay, not easy to see that. It seems to be a bit kind of dark there. Anyway, but so what we'll do is we'll start as usual with a wash, and we'll start using, the wash will be burnt umber. Yes, so what we do is making a wash. The good reasons for making a wash are your painting is less superficial, so you're not painting against white. In oil painting, the paint is mostly opaque, so you don't really want to see the white shining through. And this sort of reveals itself mostly in blue skies, when you see people who don't paint or haven't sort of thought that one through. You often see the skies look superficial. Okay, so that's one reason. Another reason is that you're allowing for the possibility of happy accidents. So if you let the wash sort of come through in the painting, certain places, it just happens by accident because you don't cover an area up. So if you let the wash shine through or show through, it kind of gives something to the painting that you didn't intend, but is usually quite pleasing anyway. So that's a really good reason for doing it. If you had white and you didn't paint over there, it looks harsh and not correct. What other reasons? Other reasons are you've broken in the support that you're painting on, which is always a good thing. It can be quite tyrannical to have a white canvas staring at you. You're also bringing the tone of your canvas down to the tone of your palette, which is good for mixing colours and getting accurate mixes. I'm going to apply the wash. In this case, burnt umber, but it could be kind of almost any colour. Okay, so okay, there we go. There's the wash. You don't have to be sort of super accurate about that. It's splash it on really, and then tamp it down, because you don't want to be painting on a slick surface. You don't want the paint to be too wet. All right? You just want to bring the tone down there like that. Okay, so I'm going to do a drawing. There, we've got a tray on a table. It's got flowers, got a newspaper, got a jug, got coffee, and sugar. Background, there's a chair. There's a kitchen unit behind. Off to the top right, you can't see anything. Okay, that's fine. So let's do this drawing. Let's see. So up here first, we can draw the way that table is. Because that gives us basically our. I'll put it down a wee bit there, like that. Okay, that means that we can put in that chair. What we can see of that chair. Okay, there. And that means we can sort of put in a bit of our kitchen unit behind. Basket in there. These are unimportant details really. I'm just sort of marking them in sort of. I might actually push that down a wee bit, something like that. Now, this tray, where do we want it? Because we can position it where we like. It's the painting that's important, not the fidelity to the photograph. See, that can come there like that. There. And you can draw the whole tray. You can sort of you don't need to sort of draw up to the bits that come up and then come up there like that for the top of the coffee pot. You do the whole tray because you can always sort of put in the other bits over the top, like I'm going to do now. So there we have coffee pot that comes out past the table. There, there's a bobble on it. You've got this sugar bowl there, cup here. Doing an ellipse by straight lines. All the same things apply as usual. Jug. What happens is people get too tied up in the photograph, and they don't get anywhere because they're looking for accuracy and fidelity to the photograph. And it isn't as necessary as people think. The job is to make a painting that you're happy with and that's pleasing to the eye, I suppose. Now we've got the newspaper. Oh, we've got flowers here. So blossom, blossom, blossom. Blossom's all coming up there. Blossom up there. Newspaper hides the edge of the tray. Okay, and then we've got the tray. There's not much of a shadow. There's stuff there, you know, patterns and stuff like that, which we're not going to be too descriptive with. That coffee pot I found in a charity shop in Wexford. I've never seen one quite like that before. It's one of those Bodum things, but it was all coloured. Looks a bit 1980s. Okay, so we've got that there. All right, so that's our that's our composition. That will do. So we're going to start making this mosaic of colour that we see. My rag. So I think I'll start out with that jug, just because it's there stuck in the middle and it's kind of bright. I might start out with the jug and then move on to the flowers. Just an indication of the flowers. So let's go and have a look at our palette. Yeah. Let's make an orange for the jug. It's kind of a reddy orange. Something like that, a bit more red in it. Okay, let's go back. We'll make a shadow. We'll make a shadow of that one. Just put a little bit of black into it. Sorry, I should show you that, shouldn't I? If I take a bit of that orange over here and just stick a little bit of black into it, I'll get a shadow version because I can see a shadow on that jug. And the shadow is cast by the cup, and it's over here too, and it's in the handle behind. And then let's put in the orange part. Okay, there's another mosaic piece gone in there. In the blocking in stage. Let's put an indication of where those flowers are, the lovely pink carnations they are. Not sure how much carnations would make to a decent breakfast. I'm sure it might work for some people. So permanent rose and white. Seems to be something like that. It's quite a lot of permanent rose in it. Okay, let's go back. We'll put those in then. So where I can see them is kind of like that. All right, maybe something like that. Okay, so now that those mosaic pieces are in, let's put in those darks, the dark of the coffee, the dark that's in that jug, and the dark that's in the coffee in the cup. We'll raise the tide as well on the coffee in the cup. We'll have more coffee in there. Yeah. All right, so I'm just going to do that by taking a bit of burnt umber, I think. Burnt umber, that'll make a nice dark. And it'll be in the right sort of warmth scale. Bit of blue into it. Get it darker. Right, and here we go. We're going to put that in where we see it. There's the kind of coffee in the French press. It's here and here. Now, are there any other darks that we could sort of put in while we're working with darks? Yeah, well, there's this one over here. I can move that down at this point because that would be better if it was down. So we've got a dark there. We've got a dark above that basket thing there. Dark in there. A dark shadow cast by the cup, a dark there, and a dark cast by the newspaper, and a dark in that corner. So the light's obviously coming from the left. Okay, so we've got our darks in there. Maybe we'll put a little bit of a dark inner underneath those flowers as well. All right. Something I forgot here is that that handle. Right, let's do that blue back of the chair. All blocking in. We'll get some blue, some cobalt blue. We'll add a bit of red to it. It's something like that. It's just blue with a little touch of red, because it's a reddish blue. It's not a greenish blue. All right, we'll block that one in. Imagine if you're actually standing in your kitchen painting. You have to work quickly. Okay, so I've got that. Let's block in that the press behind it, which is a kind of a green. So let's get some yellow, blue. That makes a green, but it's not the right kind of green. There's white in it. A bit more blue. Bit of oil to help it move around. A bit more blue. Touch of red. It's quite a natural green. But it's a natural green-grey. Let's put some blue there. Yeah. Kind of something like that, I think. Okay, so I just mixed up that entire sort of colour there, and that kind of goes around here. I don't want to sort of go over the coffee pot lid. And it kind of occurs just behind here as well. It comes down there like that. Let's do the tablecloth, which is a very kind of light green. So it's a huge block of light green, but it's much lighter than the colour of the presses behind it. And this is the kind of thing that we can paint into. when we want to start putting our, however much pattern that we're going to. Kind of along those lines there, I think. Redder. Okay. Okay, and we're going to block that in. This is really very much a supporting role that the background is playing. So you don't need to get too involved in detailed descriptions, because you want people to really concentrate on what you want them to concentrate on, which is probably the tray with all the stuff on it. Okay, so now we have a background for the tray. Now let's do the floor behind, because that should be relatively simple to do. It's just a sort of slightly red, warm, burnt umbery kind of grey. Let's put that in however we want it there. It's not the most vital thing there. Across there, you see it a bit there. The baskets are a similar kind of colour. Those baskets behind. So just going to block those in kind of a red. Maybe just put a bit of red there, because we're going to make some description of books and stuff there later. What's the lightest part of this painting? The lightest part, yeah, it seems to be on the cup. So yeah, that would be the lightest part. So everything has to be sort of lighter than maybe what's on the handle of that cup, and to the right of the inside of that cup, and the rim on the right there. All right. So we've also got that similar kind of light brown colour there in the sugar bowl. Brown sugar. Put that there. See, we're not being too super accurate with things just yet. Let's put in some blue, because the floor of that tray is a kind of a pattern blue, but it's not it's not sort of heavily patterned. You could sort of could express it in a kind of a mid blue tone. So let's put that in there. Make that sort of sugar bowl bigger. The main I think purpose of a painting, right, is to tell a story rather than reflect super accuracy. I often find that paintings that are hyper real leave me cold, and I prefer the kind of thing that the Impressionists were doing. All right, so we've got the floor of the tray in there. Let's put that blue lid on the bottom French press there. We'll put that across there, like that there. See, there's a yellow bubble on the top. That will just be a blob of paint later on. All right, so there's a lighter blue to the left of the lid. Put that in there like that. So now we've got a shadow and a body color. No, so you have shadows, you have body colors, and then you have highlights. That's the order of play. Okay, so let's do something with it. There's a kind of a bluish sort of purpley thing that on the newspaper. So we're not going to start sort of writing bits of news on here. We just put in a kind of an indication of how, to kind of make it look like a newspaper somewhat. There's a blue there. And then there's the paper. We'll make, for the paper, some white. It can't be as white or as light as that cup. All right, so we're going to have to knock it back a bit tonally. So we just use the colors, blue, red, bit of yellow, knock it down to away from the brightness of the highlight of that cup. Okay, something like that, I think. Things are always a bit darker than you think, especially in paintings. Okay, we're going to put that in there. There, like that. Let's put in some foliage for that bouquet. I can just change my brush, smaller brush, okay, just so that I can manage to get into those little areas there. Big jobs, big brushes, small jobs, small brushes. All right, so we're going to make a kind of a natural dark green, really. So blue, yellow, and red to make it more natural. I overdid the red there. A bit more blue, a bit more blue. There, something like that. It's quite dark. You can't really see much of the light parts of the foliage. Okay, so in there. Okay, something like that. It's in a glass jar actually, so it's so you can't really see very much of anything below that. In fact, that is dark all there as well. All right, let's do the inside of that jug, which is obviously darker again than the it's darker and warmer, the inside of that jug. Bit of blue, bit more white. Yes, it's kind of a warm. And then there's a shadowed part of it, so I'm going to make a little bit of, put a little bit of black into that mix, bring it across, put a bit of black into it, and that will make our shadow. And always remember the tone is more important than colour. You could do a whole painting in completely different colours, and if you get the tone right, it'll still look like what you want it to look like. Okay. So across there, that dark is going to stay, and then the lit part of the inside of the jug. Just lighten that up a bit. And let's put okay. Let's increase the size of that sugar bowl. There. Cup. Let's go back to our mix. That was the white that we made for the newspaper. Let's put a bit more white into it, and a bit more blue. That'll give us a kind of a light for the front of the cup. And then we need to actually make a shadowed part. So let's bring a bit of black into that. We're using that paint, mixing a bit of black into it to get the shadow. All right, let's go back. Shadow there. Shadow there. Shadow here. Shadow across the bottom of the cup. we're going to grab some of the light colour now. And put that in there. On that cup it says, "I am sorry for what I said when I was hungry." And that, my family bought that for me one Christmas, and they were trying to tell me something. Something that I missed here is that we're painting through that. That's catching all that sort of tablecloth light. Bring that down a wee bit. Let's put in the yellow of that bottom vessel. Let's put some yellow in there. It's a kind of a dark, warm yellow. So I'm just going to mix it into that yellow I made, or the orange I made for the jug. A bit more yellow there. Okay, and come out here and place that in there. There. Now we've got more of our jug. Put it in there. Let me put that around there. That doesn't actually need to show there at all. All right, let's do the inside of the rim of that tray. Let's make the colour of the tray what we want it to be first of all. It's kind of a it's kind of a very light wood. Okay, so let's I'm going to use that inside of the jug colour. That would be something like that. But I also need that in shadow. So let's put a bit of black into that. You only use black for making shadows. You don't use it for any other purpose. And in this, I'm actually going to add blue and red just to see what I can get out of that. Beef it up a little bit more red, a bit more blue. Maybe something like that. That'll differentiate it from the tablecloth as well. We'll put that in first. It's quite a high-sided tray. Come up there like that. Comes across there like that. And obviously the inside of it is going to be much the same. It goes into shadow there. And also there's a handle part in there. And then we'll put in the lid part. This is all in light here. She's brighter than I have it. Okay. And also that bright comes across the top of the tray too. Across the top of the tray there too. Okay, so there's a nice sort of bright bluish light in here. In there as well, in there. but they're just kind of details, that they're or kind of strokes to kind of denote detail. There isn't actually very much detail there that you want to be putting into a painting. Okay, so maybe we need to give that that tray a little bit of shadow. Okay, so we had that sort of background colour, the tablecloth, and let's put a bit of a shadow into it. So now it's sitting on the table. Let's darken that here, give it a little bit of a sense of a pool of light. So that this is the window's obviously over here, that way. So it is actually going to darken as we move away from the window. Sculpt that. All the same sort of things apply as to when you're doing still lifes. You're sculpting. So now we've got a decent sort of base to work on. We're almost done with the blocking in. And our main sort of mosaic pieces are put in. So I think from now on, it's kind of like we're working into what we've got to create the illusion of detail. Right, so let's make that darker. I want that to be darker, and I want that to meet up. See, that doesn't meet up. It doesn't sort of, it doesn't join, it doesn't agree. From here, you'd think it would come up more here like that. Do I want it to? Yeah, okay, yeah, we will. We'll push that out. And that's the thing about oil paints. You're pushing them around. But you need enough paint on your brush to actually, or on your painting to push it around. So that's why you shouldn't be sort of miserly with the paint. Okay. Let's do more with that chair. Okay, push that around there. Get that in. Push that into shape. Let's put a bit of light on the top of the chair where it's actually catching the light from the window. So now we have a bit of volume to it. Now that we put a kind of a light on it, let's push that down there like that. What's behind it? There's a dark. There's a dark. It's like the tray. It's exactly the same as the side of the tray. So I'm going to put that in there. That, in fact, is the kickboard of the kitchen. It's metal. Push that there. Bring it through here as well. So you just want to fill that up. Nobody's going to be sort of looking at that sort of at that part of the painting that closely. We want people's attention over here. A dark in there. A dark up the behind the chair. Really is quite dark. That'll be in there. Coming along there. I'm beefing up that dark. With a bit of burnt umber and blue together. Put a dark in there. All you're doing here is just sort of creating the illusion that there are things going on. You don't need to be super accurate, okay? Put that up there like that. That's not agreeing. So that's got to agree with the table, in the sense that it's all sort of facing the same direction. The table's in line with the kitchen units. Okay, so we have that agreeing now. Let's get some light and warmth over on this edge of the table. the tablecloth. Okay, I'm just mixing up a little bit more white with that tablecloth colour. Mixing that in there. And now, because we've already got paint on here, and we're not going too far from the actual colour, it's easier to get the paint down. We can move the paint around a bit more easily. See, look, and sculpt that shadow. Push that out. Let us work on the newspaper a little bit here. Get a bit of a dark in there. Push that up there. Give the sense that there's a kind of a photograph in there. There's a little bit of orange. Must be somebody, a picture of somebody, so you can see colours in there. Let's put in a little bit of detail on that sugar bowl, which is red, a warm red, quite dark. Okay, and we can put that in here. There. And then the sugar itself is right here, but that's darker down there. So I'm going to get a bit of black, put it into that sugar mix that I made before, and put that in, something like that. So that's not catching the light. And that means I can get a bit of a colour in there. Move that up to fill in those little gaps. Okay. Let's do a bit more with the jug. The jug is actually redder than I have it in the shadows, and it's still warm. Let's mix up a bit more of that. But I'm not taking it too far from where I was before, either tonally or in terms of the hue of it. So it's not going to cause too many problems. If you're changing that color from, for instance, blue to orange, then you'd run into the problems of turning your painting into mud. The changes can't be too radical. So when you're painting from life, you're trying to, in those early stages of the painting, the blocking in stages, you're trying to get sort of within, within 20% of where you want to be. Okay. Let's move this around a bit. If you start making really radical changes, it never works. Dark down here. And actually that does go dark there completely. Okay. And some fill in that area there. And there. Now, coffee is a lot sort of, it's a lot, how would you say, it's warmer, isn't it? And it's kind of grayer than tea, for example, I think. How would I get that? Blue. Let's have a look. Let's see if we can get a coffee colour. We've got kind of a brown here. More yellow. It's kind of too yellow. That's too bright. Let's put a bit of blue into it. More red. Seems to be the addition of white is going to make more of a difference there. Let's put that in. We can always change it later. Be cafe what? Cafe au lait or something. Pushing that rim around. Now let's do something with the bottom French press. It's kind of a reflection of the top of the coffee there. Put that in. So it's slightly lighter, slightly bluer than what's underneath it. I'm going to beef up that that dark of the coffee in the actual French press. There. Push it out to that yellow part. Push that dark around there. I'm just wondering, is that actually there? That isn't there. Get rid of that. Yeah. But there is a yellow part coming along here. Okay. It's more like it. And let's put a little bit of light on those yellow metal parts on the left here. More white than that. There. And that one is brighter than the other one. Let's push up the tablecloth reflection or refraction up here. Now, oh, sorry, beg your pardon, just whacked off the top of the camera there. Push that in there like that. A little bit of a dark in the handle. And it's still all about observation. Although it's much better to paint from life because the observation is more critical, I suppose, when you're painting from life. So you have to make the paintings that you do from photographs look as if they were done from life. Yeah, across there like that. Need my handle, didn't I? Handle there. Move that there. Okay, back to the French press. Put darkness over there because it's away from the light. Across the top there. I'm going to put in a couple of little... The highlights are quite subdued on the top of that, on the lid. They're not really that bright. But there is something blue. These are the windows being reflected in the glass there and there. So you can see that we're painting into the blocks of paint that we put in the first place. That's how that's how it works. You get the generality in first, and then you just paint into it. Let me put a little bit of light into that cup there. There. Across the top of the handle. Now there are some reflections and little details to be put into that sort of sugar bowl as well. So sugar bowl is up there like that. A couple of those light blue reflections in here, but we're not going to sort of overdo it. There's something there. I don't know what there's. That. Oh yes, of course. There's those sort of. It's one of those Kilner jars, isn't it? So just give that a little bit of a mess around with that a bit. Push that over. Okay. There's a light in there. Just make a bit more of those flowers. Okay, we've got the flowers in. There's a shadow cast over that newspaper a little bit by the jug. Let's give it a more three-dimensional feel. And of course up here, there's a bit of yellow here for some reason. It must be something on the newspaper. Okay, let's put in some other little details. This is kind of a point of light on that chair. Let's put a bit of shadow onto that door. Kind of needs it. Yeah. Shadow under there too. Spoon coming out of that cup. Little highlight on it. Let's put some highlights on the jug. They're very, very, very. The shadows from. Oh, sorry, highlights from the windows. they're quite blue. Around there too. And let's put so that the rim on that cup, I'll make that as warm as I can. So when you're making warm highlights, you're taking a bit of white, a little bit of yellow, and a tiny touch of red. Okay, make it warm. Okay, and then you can put it there, there, and on this, the rim of that little jug, I need a there. Okay, it's one of those French jugs, Le Creuset, I think. Okay, there. Let's suggest that there's patterns in the tablecloth. I'm just using whatever paint I can that's roughly similar on my palette at the moment. I don't think anyone's ever going to be able to recognize the pattern just from this painting. We just sort of want it to be there. If you can't see, it's actually llamas. Loads of cartoonish kind of llamas. It's one of those oilcloths. Get a bit of yellow. So I'm kind of putting him in a bit like is on the actual cloth, but you don't sort of don't need to start describing like mad. All you're doing is just sort of showing that there is indeed a pattern. Oh, little yellow bobble on top of the French press. I loaded up the brush and I just kind of pressed it on. You don't need to actually sort of start shaping things like that. Just putting in a few sort of darks to help the thing along. There is in fact a dark down here. Maybe just a little indication of a pattern in that tray. Let's put in a couple of darks around. That goes dark as it reaches down towards the table. Push that into there. Make a bit more of that chair. And make a bit more of that shadow being cast by the tray as well. Because it's my painting and I think it'll help it. That's the attitude you've got to take. Push that up there like that. Shape the tray. Make sure that people know or think that you've actually painted it by standing at that window, painting the object from life. I'm going to put in a couple more of, I've got that sort of highlight thing mixed up, so I'll put one there. I think it looks nice with the highlight. Maybe just give that a little bit of a rim. Come around there like that. Fill in some of those areas. Putting stuff there behind it. Could be anything, could be books, could be putting a shadow there. They're baskets really, let's make it more a basket-like. Push that out there so it looks more like a jug. Let's put a highlight down the edge of this in here. We want people to think that there's light coming from here, which there is, but we've got to show it to them. More texture is very nice in a painting. Don't be afraid of loading your paint on. It adds something. Adds something that the photograph can't do. Especially in a painting like this, which you would think relies on accuracy, but it kind of doesn't. Okay. We can shape our little sort of animals or whatever. And then we can have breakfast in bed. There you go. So compared to the actual sort of picture, there's both less going on in this painting and more going on in this painting, because the painting really starts to be about you and your response to what you've got. And what happens a lot of the time is that people just become super accurate, or they attempt to be super accurate to the painting, and then they lose the opportunity of making it something that's worthwhile just in itself as the painting.